I'm curious, I assume there were a lot of things that also happened along the way that felt a little more disastrous or a lot of learnings. And I'd be curious to hear a few of those things.
Yeah. Thinking of what's an interesting story. There were a lot of little things in the early days that turn out to not matter. So I think that's really important for founders to know. What might feel like a disaster day to day, you might not remember years later. For us, I think the hardest thing was mid 2022, the market changed. And while the pandemic created these conditions that really bolstered a product like ours and a company like ours, that was temporary in ways that, in retrospect, I think were foreseeable. So our entire positioning, our brand identity, and our go-to-market strategy was really reliant on a marketplace that valued employees.
Yeah.
And a marketplace where employees had power. If employees didn't have power, why would you invest in something like this, right?
Right.
And so mid 2022 was when the first round of layoffs happened in the sectors that we were primarily selling into. And it took us a little while to realize that those things weren't one-offs and that they were the beginning of a new set of trends, which we adapted to, but it was that was really hard. So our two go-to-market strategies that worked, one was the onboarding thing that I was talking about. So we'd sell into new hire onboarding, then grow throughout a company. Well, when layoffs happen and companies stop hiring, that just goes away. There's no new hire onboarding. And if there is, it's not 1,000 people a month, it's 10 people a month. So that was a challenge. The other thing that worked for us was we would sell into startups because at the time, startups were growing every year. So if we could sell into a startup that when we sold to them was 50 people, by renewal a year later, they might be 300 people or larger. That was working for us really well. Well, what started to happen in 2022, 2023 is the startups either got smaller or they went away completely because the market conditions just shifted. And so 2022, end of 2022, early 2023 was a really challenging time for us because it was unclear, is this just a go-to-market problem that we have to adjust? Because our two growth mechanisms just really weren't working anymore and we were starting to flatline. Or is there something more substantial in the product and our positioning that we have to look at? What we ultimately decided to do was maintain the same core functionality, the same brand generally, the same concept of templates, et cetera, but change our positioning pretty substantially to focus more on productivity. And so we moved from being this special employee engagement experience where the sort of workplace equivalent of the event room or the multi-purpose room, as opposed to your day-to-day office, your day-to-day conference room, and become more of a daily use, weekly use product for meetings that required more engagement and structure. And that was definitely the right decision. I wish we had made the decision maybe a quarter earlier, but I think we made it at the right time. And we sort of replaced the onboarding go-to-market strategy with company all hands. So a similar thing, you could expose everyone to the product, but all hands and what's needed for all hands from a product perspective is very different from what's needed for onboarding. Onboarding is mostly social, getting to know the culture, whereas all hands is a lot of presentation, a lot of speakers. And so we had to do a lot of product adaptation to meet the needs of the changing market environment. And that was challenging for a bunch of reasons. It was challenging for employees, I think, to understand and get behind, because it wasn't a mission change, but it felt like it was coming up on a mission change, which was hard for people. And we've been used by hundreds of thousands of people. And so shifting people's perception of us in the marketplace also was challenging, but we did it and we got through it.